Good morning, gang. Happy, what is today? Wednesday. Okay, there we go. So I know you guys are probably getting sick and tired of all these stories on potential war, but it's kind of what's the most important thing right now. And I mean, well, we're all making our preparations. It doesn't really do anybody any good for me not to talk about what the crises that we can seriously see going ahead of us. So in digging around this afternoon, finding out what's going on, and talking to Mrs. P, I'm going to touch on two different things today again, okay? So we all know the story, the first one, we all know the story of the power going out in Iran over the weekend. And, supposedly it was Israeli sabotage of the nuclear plant and everything. And I guess now there's some credence to that. But Iran has come out today, and today being Tuesday evening, and had said that they will be starting 60% uranium enrichment on Wednesday. Now, that's a significant increase from before. Now, and again, I say go back to this whole deal that the Obama administration, remember the planes of billions of dollars rolling in there with cash and everything, and Trump pulled us out of it, and so now, they're back. Well, now they're upping their enrichment capability to 60%. The other catch is they're also going to install an additional 1,000 centrifuges of 50% higher enrichment capacity at the nuclear facility. Okay, so this is significant. And I mean, so now we talk about the third hot spot, if you will. Now, not that anything's gotten goofy with Israel and Iran lately, but this is something, again, to keep an eye on, because, Israel is bound and determined to say that Iran will not have nuclear weapons. And Iran every day gets closer and closer and closer to enriching uranium up to the point where they can make nuclear weapons. Something to watch. Okay. But the other one that I wanted to talk about was Russia-Ukraine. All right. And this was a conversation I had with Mrs. P yesterday. So, we had talked the other day about the supersonic missile that Russia supposedly has, where it could fly at 20 to 30 times the speed of sound. Okay, that was wonderful for a nuclear-capable missile. Now, then you saw the story, a month back or whatever, where Russia did that risky maneuver of surfacing 3 submarines up in the Arctic. And we all know the stories of them revitalizing their bases up in the Arctic Circle, and as people have said, surrounding Canada from the north. So you've got that. And then there was information out yesterday that they are testing for all intents and purposes, a nuclear torpedo, which has a small nuclear power plant in the torpedo that they could fire, and then the warhead on the torpedo would go off in the ocean to cause a tsunami over the East Coast, okay? And you would have radioactive water flooding into New York City, Boston Harbor, Washington, D.C., pick something, Miami, Myrtle Beach, anything along, so you'd have radiation and nuclear waste for all nuclear radioactive material coming up on shore and, destroy the coastline for hundreds of years. Y'all know what's going on with Fukushima and, how much the Japanese coastline is trashed after that nuclear accident there. And now them, wanting to dump the water from the power plant into the ocean. Gee, that's a good idea. Okay. So then today, there was a story that came out that Russia is going to soon integrate its, as they're called, robotic killer tanks in Ukraine, okay? And these are nomenclature is a Uran 9 robotic system, which is an unmanned ground vehicle equipped with 30 millimeter automatic guns, anti-tank missiles, and flamethrowers. Okay. Now, we've all heard about robotics and everything, the military using them. We've seen the stories, about the little robotic dog running around. I mean, we've all seen in movies, when they're, and I mean, seen real life too, bomb disposal units moving in a bomb disposal robot to do it, okay? But for robotic tanks, okay, that can be a significant weapon. No risk of life lost if a tank gets shot, blown up or whatever, but obviously you lose the equipment. Well, this is where I got into talking to Mrs. P about this, and I had asked her about yesterday if she had heard about this missile or torpedo with the nuclear capability. And as her comment was, she goes, "Yeah, I bet it doesn't work." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "Well, back in the Soviet era, that the military equipment they had worked. It was good quality stuff." Okay, and again, you'd all know I carry a CZ pistol, which was made in Czech Republic and again, this is going back to Eastern Bloc because it's probably one of the best pistols in the world, okay? We don't have to tell anybody about the capacity of an AK-47, all right? So, the military equipment that was made during the Soviet era was good. And as she said, the military equipment that's made during the Russian era is crap, because you have all the payoffs and the bribes and the shortcuts being taken. And, as she said, everything works great on paper. Engineering-wise, it just never pans out. So as I had run across this information today, I found this paragraph, and I will read this to you. Uran 9 robots were deployed in Syria in 2018 for combat testing, but failed to live up to expectations. This was reported by the National Interest. Okay. Shortly after the testing, Defense Ministry researcher Andrei Ensimov told a conference that the robot's performance in Syria revealed that modern Russian combat unmanned ground vehicles are not able to perform the assigned tasks in classical types of combat operations. Now, this was a couple of years ago. Now, Vladimir Dmitriev, the head of the Uran series designer Kalishnikov concern, said last week that the firm had resolved the performance issues identified from the test, in particular the issues of control, reduced mobility, unsatisfactory military intelligence, and surveillance functions had been considered by engineers and were rectified. Now, if I go back and think about what they're talking about, if you're talking about a ground vehicle here, issues of control, okay, if I can't figure out where the thing's going. Reduced mobility, okay, the whole point of a tracked vehicle is to go over, difficult terrain. It's not to go down the highway, okay. Unsatisfactory military intelligence. Well, if they don't know what to shoot at, what's the point of the thing, okay? And surveillance functions. If you can't see where you're going with it, I mean, if it can't traverse terrain, if it can't see and it can't shoot, what the hell is it good for? All right. So my point to all of this is something to keep an eye on, because I have this strange feeling you may have a bunch of posturing coming out of Russia with all this going, we've got this super weapon and that super weapon and everything like this. And it's all a comic book. So, again, you're going to hear, probably if you turn on mainstream media or open up USA Today or the New York Times or whatever, they're going to talk about all these great, dangerous, scary weapons like we hear all the time. Oh my God, they're going to be able to do this. And from what Mrs. P was telling me, and then from reading this, if the shit don't work, who cares? Okay. And I'll give you this on the Supersonic Missile. The U.S. tried to test theirs a couple of days ago, and it failed, okay? So the technology, the United States does not have the technology for it yet. Doesn't necessarily mean the Russians don't, okay? But with the way information flies back and forth, I mean, whether or not you want to talk about the internet, you want to talk about spies, you want to talk about whatever would be, I got to think if they're at 100%, we're at 99, we're vice versa, okay? It's not like all of a sudden somebody came up with this idea and nobody else ever thought of it, okay? So, you know, just something to pay attention to. I don't know if any of these stories, any of these weapon systems that are being talked about are true. Obviously, I don't have those connections anymore. But again, I'm trying to use a little bit of logic here and a little bit of research. And if you think about it, this could just be a posturing scare tactic, because Russia's already telling the United States, oh, the ships better stay far away from Crimea and the Black Sea, otherwise there's going to be hell to pay for the United States. You know, this is probably a lot of grandstanding, is my guess. So keep an eye out for it, but I'm just trying to put a dose of reality in, you know, following up after all the bluster that we're hearing. So have a good Wednesday, guys. Pinball out.